Good morning and welcome to today's webinar, Budgetary and Resource Benefits of Bottle Filling Stations in Schools, sponsored by LK. I'm Mike Eby, Group Editorial Director for ASNU. Before we get started today, I need to cover a few housekeeping items. If you have any technical difficulties during today's session, please put your question in the questions window and our technical expert can help you fix your problem. We recommend that you disable any pop-up blocking software or extensions in your browser because these can cause issues with the webinar player. We also welcome your questions for today's event. We'll answer as many questions as possible during the Q&A session that will follow the main presentation. But feel free to send your question in at any time. You can type it into the question box and hit the submit button and it'll go into a queue and we'll address those at the end. Please be aware that today's session is also being recorded and will be made available on the ASNU website in the next few days. You'll be notified by email when that archive is available. Now it's my pleasure to introduce today's speaker. Scott Nielsen is the Director, Filtration and Filtration with Zurn Elkay organization, His previous roles in the company centered around mergers and acquisitions and corporate strategy. He recently accepted his new role as leader of the filtration business to make a positive change in bringing cleaner, safer drinking water to the company's customers. His focus currently spans everything from marketing and awareness campaigns to building out new strategic sales platforms and channels. He oversees the innovative filtration technologies for the drinking water platforms that the company offers, and he's based in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, but spends time in the Downers Grove, Illinois offices as well. All right, Scott, turning it over to you, and you can take it away.
Great, thank you, and welcome everyone. Thanks for joining, and a lot of things we'll talk about today. I actually am in the Downers Grove office now in Illinois, so that's where our LK headquarters are. So a lot of exciting things happening. What I want to talk about today is a few things. I think, we have offered a lot of drinking water devices over the years, and there's a lot of innovation now occurring with easier access to filters, better innovative delivery devices, and ways that we've really kind of partnered with facility maintenance folks and contractors to make this even easier to install, retrofit, maintain, because we know there's a ton of trends happening right now, not only around the request and need for hydration, but also do it sustainably and do it with high levels of water quality. And so those are kind of the three things that will help everyone navigate is how we can offer sustainable hydration in a very sort of high quality way and make your jobs easier along the way doing it. So that's a few things that we'll talk about. Look, I think there's drinking water challenges that exist. We'll kind of cover even challenges, with our current lineup and things historically that have happened, but we have new innovative solutions to really kind of help our customers navigate this, and then kind of how we build that out going forward. So, if we look at kind of the history of bottle fillers, right? Predominantly kind of the last 20 years, we've seen this evolution and install and build out of the bottle filler ecosystem. Today it's really sort of the norm of hydration. It's kind of everyone carries around that, bottle that they have, that reusable bottle, and they want to fill it up. There's more use of bottle fillers than there are bubblers, drinking fountains, and that trend continues to occur. So we really kind of see that all over the place today. And then especially as COVID came out, obviously touchless, hygienic features became even more in scope. The idea of kind of drinking from a fountain and having kind of water come back into the space and was, kind of dismissed. And so having this kind of clean hydration station and different sort of things is really kind of, what we've seen the trend of go towards. I think as we've built out the bottle filler market, and as we've seen a lot of this install occur, initially a lot of the focus is on sustainability. And so you've gone from, millions and billions of single-use plastic water bottles mitigated by these bottle filling stations to now have kind of a sustainable way to hydrate and to recur. And so, we've seen that kind of occur in the last, 10, 20 years. The bottle filler counter, something cool people like. They like to see their impact. They like to see that tick up. And mitigating those plastic bottles from landfills is really kind of that focus. Today, right, there's been quite a build out of this. We know that there's about 130,000 K-12 schools in the country, serving about 50 million students, and about another 6,000 colleges, universities serving another 20 million students. So the market's sort of large and inviting and ripe for opportunity, innovation, but also making obviously all of this easier, more budget maintenance friendly, which is sort of what we'll talk about, and sort of how we do that and kind of what we're coming out with and solutions that really help everyone. I think that's on the phone. So I think that's a little bit of the setup. Talking through water quality. We'll talk about water quality. We'll talk about why filtration matters. We'll talk about some of the changes that's coming, and then we'll talk about a lot of the products and solutions for everyone. So those are maybe like the three points. So we talk about water quality. Why filtration matters, why you're hearing more about it, why people are asking for it. Historically, right, lead has been the biggest focus of water quality, testing for lead. Is there lead in my water? That's a big concern. Today, there's still 47 million children that are drinking water that contains lead within school systems in this country. That's more than 1 in every 2. And so while lead has been known for quite some time, it's been a contaminant that is out there. We also know that it is still an issue. And so at the core of kind of the lead crisis, we still need to tackle that and solve that by providing safe, clean drinking water, filtered water to all these students. It costs about $1 per student for the entire school year to offer filtration programs. And the simple math of that is we generally find that there in schools tends to be about 1 bottle filler per 100 students. So that's typically the ratio. If you think about if there's 700 students in a building, you want 7 bottle fillers. That 1 per 100 is a good ratio. A filter program for that bottle filler over the course of the year more or less might cost about $100. And so you're spending $100 on filters to serve 100 students. It's $1 for the year. And so you think about everything that we're kind of doing to say, can we afford $1 per student for the whole year to have this safe, clean drinking water? We think is a decision that's easy to make. But obviously, promoting kind of what this all does. The reason I think everyone's been focused on lead in drinking water and the impact it has is there's really not a safe level for lead in drinking water. We've seen, especially among developing individuals, younger individuals, just the impact lead can have on them. It leads to nervous system issues, brain issues, developmental issues, learning disabilities. You're kind of interfering with that whole development process by having lead in especially younger individuals' bodies, which leads to a lot of these issues. And so that's why the lead is so impactful, and having kind of that filtration is good. Then the next thing coming, as some of you might have heard, is this thing called PFAS. PFAS, or another term for it, is forever chemicals. So if you've heard forever chemicals, PFAS, anything. What PFAS is basically a family of synthetic chemicals that industries have used for decades. And so the best example is a non-stick frying pan, cookware from a decade or 2 ago. When they made that, they made this a synthetic chemical that coated that frying pan that had a very specific property. It is heat resistant. It always performs. It doesn't fade away. You always get that same performance over and over, and it's going to last forever. Okay, that's great for the use of the frying pan. What's happened is all that stuff has got thrown out into landfills over the years. And while that pan may have disintegrated and broken down, that coating, those chemicals, stay intact forever. They are designed synthetically to never break down, right? It's not a natural material. It's not sort of natural things that go into the environment. It's, again, a synthetic chemical that's sort of been put on that frying pan that stays in place. So as that gets thrown out, eventually over time, that leaches into the groundwater. And now we're seeing it get into water systems. And so, there's other applications around airports and military bases where they've used this in firefighting applications. It's also gotten into the water and different things that we've seen. The map up here in the top right is kind of where PFAS has been detected so far. But I can tell you that talking to experts on this, we've known that it's been identified in Antarctica, at the North Pole, and on Mount Everest. So it's essentially spread throughout the entire world, unfortunately. It even gets there through acid, different rain. So even if you're not around any of these areas, it moves around, shifts, rain downs, gets into kind of the drinking water. PFAS, unfortunately, is going to have a bigger health impact than lead does. So PFAS has been directly linked to certain types of cancers, reproductive issues, immune system issues, hormonal issues, cholesterol, obesity issues. Again, putting something into your body that doesn't break down, doesn't pass, stays inside of you, attaches to different things, and just wreaks havoc a little bit with your body's function. There was a pretty widely disseminated study about a year ago from the United States Geological Survey that they basically said about at least half of U.S. homes have PFAS in their tap water today. You can kind of see some of the headlines. The Wall Street Journal, nearly half of tap water contains it. New York Times, it's everywhere. What are we doing? USA Today, it's affecting 46 million systems. And so, this is something that is coming. Unfortunately, it's going to be the next lead. You're going to hear about it. If you kind of look at this landfill, we think of there's 30, 40 years of stuff containing PFAS in here. We're sort of on the tip of that sphere of it starting to get into groundwater. Even if we stopped today, there's still 30 years of backlog in queue, kind of working its way down. And so this is going to get worse and worse. Unfortunately, there's no way to dig all this stuff up and do something with it. It's going to kind of cycle through water. And you'll hear about this for sure in the next year or two as it continues to get awareness around this and affect more areas, unfortunately. And then I think the third thing, right, that we've heard about, this is sort of, updates on water quality, is microplastics. And so there was a study that came out earlier this year that was picked up by a lot of news organizations that a liter of bottled water may contain up to 400,000 pieces of microplastics. And so we've seen a lot of, updating awareness around bottled water and microplastics that exist in it. And so I think between these three things, right, bottle filling stations that are filtered are the best solution, because on one hand, you go to bottled water, you're going to expose yourself to microplastics. You don't have sustainability. If you go to tap water, you have lead and PFAS potentially there. And bottle fillers fit that both, where it's a sustainable solution, but also filtered high water quality. And so that's kind of how we're positioning a bit of that. If you think about kind of geographically, like how states have looked at and how it's been looked at in terms of states' water quality, there's not an area that's immune from this issue. Every single state, every single region can improve, has ability. 27 of these 50 states have been graded an F on protecting drinking water in schools, and a lot of Ds and Cs. So there's a lot of potential here to continue to improve. And you kind of see some of the headlines. These continue to pop up more and more. No one wants to be in a headline. No one wants to get tested water and find out there's issues. And that's kind of what we're hearing from our customers is make our solutions, bulletproof, that everything is filtered with the high-end filters to do all this so I don't become a headline as there's more awareness happening. And we are seeing a lot of legislation now occurring around this. So everything I just said, people know. I mean, I'm not the only person that knows there's water quality issues. It costs $1 a student. We can solve it. We have the filters available. They're efficient. They're effective. They're economical. This can be done. A lot of legislation right now is kind of taking hold. Michigan signed into law last fall a law called Filter First, which is basically every K-12 and daycare in the state has to filter all their water. Anything that can be consumed directly, indirectly, has to be filtered. So even beyond bottle fillers, classroom sinks, food prep sinks, all of this has to be filtered, maintained, tested annually. And a lot of these other states that you see are kind of going that path. So we've seen other bills pop up at state legislatures that are addressing this. You can kind of see some of the names of these, right? The Clean Water in Schools House Bill, the California Safe Drinking Water Assembly Bill, the Healthy Safe School Water Plan, the Safe Drinking Water in School House Bill, to get the lead out of school. I mean, they all kind of say the same thing, right? That this is kind of where regulation and legislation is going around. Make schools drinking water safe. It's the number one place where children get their hydration. And, we know, especially among developing children, the effects that water quality can have on their bodies and their development and some issues that it leads to. And all these bills have been introduced in the last, year and a half. So this is all very dynamic. It's coming. There's over 100 pieces of legislation active in state levels right now. So I think this is going to aggressively sort of, continue to push. And we're telling our customers, get ahead of this. It's coming, put in a good program, and you won't be scrambling or, catching up to legislation when it comes, because it will come in a lot of spots. We also see a lot of advocacy on the rise. So, this is Simple Water Data, the organization that looks at states and basically, what they're doing with water quality in terms of their school systems at a state level, statistics, testing requirements, legislative statuses, just a lot of good information that people care about. And, social awareness, right? So we see an increase in people demanding, expecting clean, safe water, and, be more connected to what's happening, pointing out when it's not, and kind of drawing that awareness. And so I think between the legislation, the advocacy, and the awareness, we see a lot of change coming around the water quality things we talked about, right? Lead's always been an issue. PFAS is a new issue that's going to be even larger than lead, and unfortunately, there's not really stopping it. Microplastics is now, a thing within bottled water people are trying to avoid, and there's a lot of sort of change coming to kind of address those. We think about, who we talk to, right, and kind of the different folks. Obviously, from a purchasing perspective, we have some of the lowest total cost of ownership solutions for filtered drinking water in the market. We can talk about that and kind of what makes that way. But we do, pride ourselves on having efficient solutions and economical solutions. Obviously, from a facilities perspective, the main focus of the products I'm about to go through are making this job easier and making people, maintenance easier, longer lasting filters, so you have to maintain them less, quicker access to them. Better retrofit kits for when you say, I need to filter something that's not filtered. How do we do that? We can do that easily, and a lot of new stuff coming around to make that simple. Obviously, from a sustainability ESG perspective, this is one of the most sustainable solutions out there that provides ESG points and different statistics of single-use plastic bottles saved, but also delivering high water quality. And then the users like it. We've talked about expecting bottle fillers, expecting to be able to fill that up, avoiding non-filtered, avoiding red lights, loving that kind of green, that light that's providing kind of that safe, clean drinking water. If you think about the, what we're thinking about, I mean, this sort of relates back to what we're talking about, but from a facility standpoint, obviously, this is a lot of our focus of our product innovation, our product development is how do we make this easier and better for facilities to maintain, install, upgrade, make sure that whole thing we just talked about is available and in place. And so, some of the challenges that we've seen, and I'm sure you guys, know that we've addressed, we'll talk through kind of addressing each of these is, hot surface temps of drinking water, both outdoor and on stainless steel units. Vandalism. I think the more I travel around and speak to facilities, maintenance folks at schools, the more I'm shocked of, what students are doing and some of the vandalism that's occurring. Historical quality issues. I think that, there's been a little bit of a learning curve on these products over the years, but different quality issues that could pop up. Difficult to retrofit. You have an old school porcelain bubbler. I want to make this a bottle filler. I want to do this. I want to configure that way. How do you retrofit all that? We can speak through that. And then the user experiences, right? They may not like hot water. They might, bang their head on something when they're trying to fill something up. That kind of use. how do we solve all that and make it, much easier? And we do appreciate, right, that there's a balance between what works best for the facilities folks and what the budget and procurement is willing to do. And I think we continue to sort of identify and be sensitive to that balance as we bring solutions to the market of it needs to make economical sense from a value proposition standpoint. So some of the new stuff, yes, you have to buy it, but I can show you it saves you time and money over time, right? That kind of gets back to the procurement side to justify that, which we can kind of talk through. So, that's, again, as we think about new product development, the balance that we strike. The first thing to talk about is our brand new, it's really sort of a change of features on our enhanced bottle filler. So a couple different things in this. Number one, we now have a drop down on a hinge bottom wrapper that allows for filter change and maintenance much easier. And so we'll look at a video in a minute that kind of shows you the different ways you can access the bottom. We have two new access solutions, one for retrofits and one for new. But historically, all of our bottle fillers, as you all know, you have to take that entire bottom thing off. You have to get on your back, go underneath it, undo it. This allows for a quick drop down. This is actually about a 30-second filter change now from start to finish versus that entire process to take that down. We also now provide with this enhanced bottle filler a 6,000-gallon filter. So typically water filters within this space are 1,500 to 3,000 gallons. This now provides 6,000 gallons, which is a longer lasting filter. So not only is maintenance quicker and easier, but you're doing it half as often. That green light stays on twice as long. And we can kind of talk through that. Some of the things that make this enhanced model, special is again, drop down shroud. The filter status lights actually tie to the filters. And so on our filters, we have RFID chips that identify the filter. And the moment you put that filter in, it's going to identify it and it's going to change that status light from red back to green. So the only thing you have to do is change that filter, which now takes about 30 seconds from beginning to end, including putting the shroud up, down, all that. You don't have to subsequently dig around and try to reset buttons or reset lights. Merely changing the filter automatically resets that light because it identifies it. And it's also identifying the capacity. So with that 6,000 gallon filter, it reads it. It says, I'm going to keep the green light on for 6,000 gallons or twice as long as typically. So a lot of new things on this P model. We also have these kind of bezel plates that allow anything that comes off. These plates can go up and basically just have areas for where you need access or openings to install this unit. So you don't have to rearrange things and patch things up or try to, seal off different things. This can go against that wall and it only identifies kind of the areas that are needed to be open for this install. So these bezel plates are a great solution for changing out to these two units, both a bi-level and a single. We talked about kind of why this enhanced P model. Again, we'll watch a video. Historically, you can kind of see a way to change this. This is much easier. You can have access to longer lasting filters. You can get access to the whole bottom maintenance easier. Lights change automatically. It's really sort of the easiest to use and maintain. For our existing install base, you might say, hey, Scott, that's great. I just bought some 2 years ago. I can't justify buying new bottle fillers with that. We also have now a retrofit ability for you to be able to access that filter from the side without taking that whole shroud down. It's, again, we'll watch a video here in a second, but it's just this side panel that pops off the side for easy change and put it back on. And this can go onto any installed bottle filler. We have it both single and bi-level that allows you to maintain these in a much easier way. So we'll go into this video here. What you're looking at is on the right is how everyone does it today. We've sold 1 million of these and 1 million need to be changed on the right. On the left is the new one. That's the drop down. 2 screws in the very top. You take that filter out, you put this back in, it hinges back up, and there's, again, 2 screws at the very top in the front. That green light goes back automatically. You put those 2 screws in up top there, and you're done. And so that's kind of the new solution, that drop down. For existing, in the middles, now what you do, so that panel comes off the side and you put the filter in, you put that panel on, and you have some screws from the side. It hangs there. So there's actually two hangers for that panel to go on while you screw that on. Versus on the right, what you'll see is once you put that back in, you're laying on your back, you're holding it up, you're trying to plant screws underneath. It's just a bit of a mess. So, this is sort of what we've come out with to both the new on the left being, the drop down, and then the side access retrofit in the middle for not having to go on your back like you see me doing here, and trying to kind of get this secured up from the bottom. So both of these are available. People ask me, hey, can I get the drop down on the existing as a retrofit? Unfortunately, no, the way that's engineered and designed with the chassis, it's not easy to retrofit that drop down onto existing, which is why we've created, again, this side access panel here that just pops off. So if you buy this, you get a whole new shroud, take the old one off, put this one on, and now you have that side panel that's there for changing filters and maintenance. We think combined, this saves everyone time and money. So we talked about the balance of procurement. We now have better access solutions for maintenance and longer lasting. And so, the way we think about this is historically, maintenance is, maybe you change a filter twice a year. This entire process takes 30 minutes, right? With the easy access, right, you can still change it twice a year, but maybe it takes now, instead of 30 minutes, less than 2. With a 6,000 gallon filter, you go from changing it twice a year to once. And with the 6,000 to drop down, you're going to change it once, less than a minute. So we kind of walk people to say, instead of changing 2 filters a year and taking a half an hour, so maybe you're spending an hour maintaining it, go to 1 change with the 6,000 and have that change in less than a minute with the drop down or the Easy FMK. So you're going from an hour of maintenance to a minute or 2 per bottle filler. The other thing about the 6,000 gallon filter, and we'll talk about it, is while it's double the capacity, it's not double the cost. So it's the lowest cost per gallon filter on the market. So you see 2 3,000 gallon filters might cost you $150. 1 6,000 costs you about $120. So you're saving money on filters, but you're also saving money on labor and time of changing less often and changing it faster. We do have this vandal resistant unit as well. We know there's in many settings, a request or maybe a need for vandal resistant units that take out some of the electronics, make it a little more mechanical, make it harder to mess around with, to break. So vandal resistant units continue to be, something we make look as nicely as possible, innovate around this, but also keeping the function of that solid unit that doesn't have as many issues or potential issues with all the electronics and some of the technology and some of our others. This is an example of something we just came out with. Retrofits basically this old school, porcelain bubbler into a bottle filler. And so this was actually a request from one of our customers that had a lot of these that want to go to the bottle fillers, but don't want to take it out, don't want to rip it out, don't want to do a bunch of stuff. So this new function here basically just essentially clicks in behind this water fountain, drops in the water line, and now you have a push button and a dispenser. If you want to get to a bottle filler from this now allows you to fill that bottle up without a ton of work, without a ton of renovation and different issues. We've also kind of heard from customers, hey, I have those two kind of bi-level bubblers, basins, but I want to add a bottle filler to it. But I kind of need those for different reasons. Again, we came out with this for a specific application. Those come off, this just clicks right in. It goes with the same plumbing, the same connections, and you can just basically pop this plate over the top that allows all 3 of these water access areas to occur. And so, what we've seen is actually the old school, the bottle filler above this lower was kind of sticking out. And so you go to drink from that bottom thing, you're hitting your head on that. This is more recessed. So we call it the headbanger that we sort of alleviated as well. But again, it's an example of what we can do in some of those things. If you think about filtration and retrofit, we can upgrade anything to be filtered any of the water line we can filter, we can retrofit anything. So, if you just say, I want this old school porcelain bubbler, the sink to be filtered, I don't want to rip it out, I want to do an asbestos survey, I just want it filtered, we can filter anything in the water line. And simply put, there's two ways we do this. We offer these, basically brackets with our head and water lines with John Guest, quick connects to splice in and basically filter things. And so these are some simple solutions that you put a bracket up, you put a filter in, you put it on the water line, you're done. What's on the right here is the exact same concept, but just in a vandal resistant box, right? The head, the water lines, the connections, but now we're in a vandal resistant box. So if you think about this hallway with this bubbler, less ability for it to be vandalized, taken down, this and this. You think about under the sink, again, same thing. What's cool about this one on the very right is this blue box, which actually there's a window that you see through, is actually a digital counter of the gallons left. So you're not thinking about green, yellow, red, which can be confusing. This is actually showing 889 gallons, 888, 887. It counts down from 3,000 to 0, and you can see that on that counter at any given time. But again, this is a great way to filter classroom sinks. That's the Michigan requirement now, right? It's coming in Pennsylvania and Colorado and others, but this is the way to do it today. This is the way to upgrade old school drinking water to be filtered. And the nice thing is you basically have one SKU still, because our filters have universal heads and receivers across all of LK. So any LK filter can fit in any LK device. So you might only need one SKU for all these applications, which I think a lot of people appreciate. Again, this is sort of a new launch design, slimmer box, same thing, right? Filter in here, a couple of connections, mount this, put it under somewhere, and now you have filtered water with a digital counter going. The things that we've heard is if you take this to a classroom sink, for example, like this one up here, instead of screwing on kind of that right on the spout, which gets maybe 100 gallons, and it can be cracked and not work and different issues with it. This secures underneath the sink. It gives you 3,000 gallons, which is good for the whole school year, and it's protected. So everything coming up is filtered to that faucet in the classroom, and lasts forever. So you're not changing out those screw-on filters as often. Another example here of just kind of some of the things we can, filter with our kind of retro. Again, any of the water line two solutions work well. We talked about sort of this classroom sink, right? Again, this application here, we've seen different ways to tackle this. Our thought and our position is that box mounted underneath here is the best because you can't vandalize it. It does not. It's protected underneath, so there's no issues with it, and it's everything coming up is filtered. You can't turn that filter off. It's just being source filtered water, and it tends to last an entire school year. So you're not constantly maintaining this application. You're just running the filter from below up to all this. So good example of upgrading some of these applications to filter without a ton of maintenance and work on an ongoing basis. The other thing is we have two good solutions for filtered faucets. This is our 2-in-1 filtered faucet, and it's actually pretty intuitive on how it works. So this is a kitchen faucet, but it can be used in a classroom or other spots. You can actually get filtered or unfiltered water from this faucet. So the reason you want to do that is if I just have a normal faucet and I filter everything to that, you might be cleaning something up or soaking something or washing paintbrushes or whatever, doing dishes. You don't want to blow through filters on that, right? And so this handle intuitively lets you go between filtered and unfiltered. It's two independent water lines. There's no cross connection. So if you open it up, you can go hot or cold, unfiltered, pull it down, you're filtered. The way that actually works underneath is pretty cool. So if you're pulling unfiltered water, your hot and your cold lines right here, just go straight up to your normal kitchen faucet. There's this is a drop down. You can have a sprayer stream just normally. If you actuate this to the filtered handle, right at this T here, the water diverts. The cold water diverts through this filter and up through the filtered area. And you can see where the stream comes down inside of here. So open it up, hot and cold go up, you change the handle, this cold water goes through the filter line and it's up through the filtered dispenser. So I have this in my house with a PFAS filter. And so I wash dishes, I'm doing things. My son says, can I have a drink of water? I close it. Just with a simple handle movement, now I'm getting PFAS lead filtered drinking water through this one faucet. And you don't have to drill in other holes for other, drinking water fillers, different things, all sort of in one unit. It's a pretty cool product. So, I think as we think about our filters, right? Drinking water devices, our bottle fillers, our retrofit kits, a couple of great things about our filters. Number one, for what they do, they are compact, they are efficient, they're powerful. And so they're not, we compare ourselves against some other big behemoth filters. These tend to be 9, 12 inches long and about the width of a soda can. So easy to use, but has really powerful punch in there. And as we think about kind of going through our filter lineup, it's first helpful to understand that we really have 2 different types of bottle fillers, because it kind of dictates what filters you can use. And even though we only have basically 3 core filters, it's important. So we have a standard unit and we have an enhanced. And so we talked a lot about the enhanced, but let me just sort of kind of reset on these two and kind of how the filters work with these. Just by looking at this, which one you have. It's very simple. A standard unit has this gray racetrack with the lights on the left, the counter on the right. The enhanced has the center set blue with the lights in the counter in the middle. The reason that's important is because the way the standard operates is that light goes from green to red after 3,000 gallons. And it's basically a closed circuit mechanic that it counts 3,000 gallons, it goes to red, it gets reset back to there with a reset, and it goes to red for 3,000 gallons. Our number one selling filter by far is a 3,000 gallon filter. It's a 51300C. So these work perfectly together because that's going to go green to red for 3,000. It's a 3,000 gallon filter. They pair up well, even though they're not connected. They just happen, they happen to be rated similarly. With the enhanced, this is where it actually interacts with the filter and reads it. So we have RFID chips on all our filters. In the enhanced, there's an NFC board that reads that filter. So that's where you put a 6,000 gallon filter into the enhanced. It knows it's 6,000 and keeps that green light on twice as long. It resets the light automatically with a new filter. You don't have to do anything else besides put a filter in. It goes back to green. It knows the capacity and it knows how long to stay green. I get the question, what if you put a 6,000 gallon filter in a standard? It will work. It will filter. It will be safe. It will give you filtered water. It will go from green to red after 3,000 gallons. So you're not getting the full use out of that 6,000 gallon filter because, again, that's programmed to be a 3,000 gallon light. The enhanced is dynamic to the filter. And so that's where you get the best use out of the 6,000. We tell our customers, especially use that where you're in high use areas, outside the gym, outside the locker room, in the weight room, in the entryway. If you're changing a filter every month or two because it gets a lot of use, that's where that 6,000 gallon filter not only saves you money on filters, but also the number of maintenance. You'll do half the maintenance. You get the new enhanced with the drop down. It's going to be the simplest thing to do is a 30-second change half as often with that and saving money on filters. So, we really have 3 core commercial filters. We have our 3,000 gallon lead filter, which is our most popular. We have our 6,000 gallon lead, which is the longest lasting, the lowest maintenance, and the lowest total cost of ownership. So over time, you will spend less money on filters with the 6,000 than on 3,000. Because again, double the capacity, but not double the cost. So it's longest lasting, lowest maintenance. And then we do have, we talked about PFAS. We have a PFAS filter, which we'll talk about here shortly. I get the question is does it do lead? Yes. PFAS is an addition to lead. So this is our highest performing, most contaminants reduced, best water quality filter. So if you care about water quality from lead, PFAS, this PFAS filter is the best one we have because now it's certified for PFAS reduction as well as lead and all that other stuff. But this is actually one of the only ones in the market within drinking water and bottle fillers that is a PFAS certified filter for everything we just talked about and everything coming. Just briefly touching on gallon filter, lowest cost per gallon, longest lasting, less maintenance, less filter spend over time. I think we've hit that enough. The PFAS filter, this is a very powerful filter, and I'll just give an example, right? So when we rate filters from a lead perspective, we have to show we reduce lead below certain thresholds. That's how you get an NSF. For PFAS, that threshold is 250 times lower than lead, meaning lead, we have to get below 5 parts per billion. We have to get PFAS below a parts per trillion level, so small that, we're performing at such a high level. This is a little bit lower capacity. It's 2,250 gallons. But again, it's a little bit bigger, but it will fit in every LK device. Every LK device we've ever sold and ever will sell can fit this filter. It's compatible. 2,250 gallons because of everything it's taking in. The way filters work is inside of a filter, there's basically a carbon block. And the analogy is you think about it like a sponge. You start out with this carbon block that's, a dry, empty sponge. As water that's got lead and cyst and PFAS comes in, that carbon block starts absorbing and attaching that lead to it, taking it out of the water so that the water going out is clean. Eventually, that sponge fills up. It's absorbed all the lead and the PFAS it can, and it's full. So now water going through, there's no way for that to go in the carbon. It continues to go on. And that's how capacities get set. That's why you change a filter, because that carbon block's now full of lead. You throw it out, put a new sponge in to absorb lead going forward. Because the PFAS filter now saying in addition to lead, I'm absorbing PFAS, it fills up quicker. But that means that the resultant water is a higher quality, but it will fill up quicker, which is why it's a slightly lower capacity. So we get that question a lot as well about that, but it's taking more stuff out of the water. It's filling up faster, so that carbon block needs to be changed a little bit more frequently. So we think about design standards, right? Number one, we promote this new enhanced unit, not only for the ease of maintenance, but the flexibility with filters. Easiest to maintain, but you can put those long-lasting filters in that save maintenance as well, and the light automatically resetting, so you're not doing a whole lot of things maintenance-wise. You're just putting a filter in, light resets, you're on your way. We talked about some specs. The new enhanced, obviously on the top row here, gets you that drop down to 6,000, all that. Vandal resistant, as well as the retrofit surface mount. Filtered faucet, we talked about that 2-in-1, right? So filtered, unfiltered water in one, basically kitchen faucets. You don't have to install more faucets, more things. It's a simple design. It takes 15 minutes to install. I did it. Pretty simple. And then our retrofit thing. So this is the retrofit box, that Vandal resistant box that filters kind of underneath the water line with that counter. And then our 2 side access shrouds. So we looked at the retrofit shroud that can go on the bottom of the bottle filler. Easy FMK is your single, and Easy FMTLK is the bi-level for getting that side panel to pop off, put your filter in, and just put that panel back on versus taking it all off. I usually wrap this up, kind of going through kind of why LK, right? Some of the highlights. I think, I think about this as 4 different pillars, best in class filtration, right? So the most powerful filters, the most compact, highest usage, all the perfect certifications you need for all of these contaminants. The longest lasting one in the market, 6,000, the only one with PFAS in the market. So if you want longevity and value, if you want best water quality, most contaminants reduced, we have both of those options. We have all the retrofit basically abilities. Everything's compatible. So if you just say, I want one SKU of filter for all my stuff, you can do that. Everything's compatible with all of our products. It's the same heads, same filters, all that size fits in all this stuff. We also have the filtered faucet. We can upgrade this with the boxes, automatic light reset. That is a quarter turn filter. So you're not threading it. You're just popping it in, turning a quarter turn, it's in. Filter access, we're making easier. But then we get back to, again, lowest total cost of ownership, longest lasting, least maintenance sort of. what we like to talk about with our products and our platform. So, kind of in closing, right, we looked at a couple solutions today, that plate behind the bubbler and the top bottom with the bottle filler that goes in, that were customer thoughts that they had that we put together. So, we're willing, able, and excited to kind of work with anyone that has solutions that are needed or things that they might want. So reach out to us, let us know if there's anything, solutions that come up. And I think the last thing we'll talk about is ESSER funds, right? So we have been talking to our customers about utilizing ESSER funds before they expire in September. There's only a couple months left of ESSER funds. Just to recap, everyone, ESSER funds were something that got created during COVID. It stands for the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief. That was basically used to reopen schools after COVID, and they were used primarily for air purification systems, hygienic touchless fixtures, make the building kind of safe. The reality is what we've seen is a lot of schools still have millions and millions and millions of dollars of ESSER funds available. They expire in September, and if you don't use it, you lose it. So they're available. What we're telling our customers now is you only have a couple months left, and these will go away. It's a little bit late to go through construction projects and get bids and set up contractors and permits and all this to do anything like capital goods related. But water filters and everything we talked about are eligible for ESSER funds. And so what our customers are looking at and doing is stocking up on a couple of years worth of filters with ESSER funds before they expire, because that frees up your operating budget for years to come. So right now, filters might be in people's operating budget year after year after year. You buy 3 years of filters today with ESSER funds. Next year, the year after, that's a opportunity in your budget for other things that you don't have to spend on. And the nice thing about them is they can sit on a shelf. They don't have a life to them. They're available. They're easy. They're boxed up. They're clean. They can kind of get stored nicely. And we have a bunch available, so we can ship them right away. So it's something that could be used by the end of the week or next week. Place the order with the ESSER funds. You get them in the next day. They're put away, and now you're set. So just an opportunity someone has looked at as we think about all these opportunities. It's a lot of information. It's a lot coming at you. So, if there's any questions people have, anything I can go back over, I'd love to do it. I want to make sure I got through that all in some time and left some time. So I probably went a little bit quick, but happy to cover anything that people have or any questions that are out there.
All right. Appreciate that presentation, Scott. Great overview of the different options available to schools to either install new systems or retrofit them. We've got a number of questions that have already been submitted. We'll start going through those now, but there's still time. If you think of something else, go ahead and type a question into the question box and hit submit, and we'll try to answer as many as possible before we close up here today. With that, I'll jump into some of the questions here. Good question came in from Stephen. How can PFAS filters be disposed of in an environmentally friendly way? Once it's completed and done its duty, how do you get rid of it so you're not reintroducing those dangerous chemicals back into the environment?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's the number one question I get when I talk about PFAS. The short answer is right now you throw it away. PFAS is so new. There's a lot of learning going on about it. There's some startups right now that are looking at how they actually dispose of PFAS forever and what you're asking, kind of cut off that cycle. What we have seen, though, is that the EPA has deemed this filter that is household waste. It's not hazardous waste, so it can be thrown out. We also have seen the Water Quality Association, which is one of the leading organizations around this. They've simulated basically filters with PFAS attached to it in landfills, and it doesn't doesn't reattach from the carbon, and that stays intact. So we're not seeing kind of it continue to leach. What I would suspect is in the next 2 or 3 years, there's a better way to actually take this truly out of the cycle. What we're telling people in the meantime is, I get it's going back in there, but it's better there than in your body. But I think we're going to learn a lot more in the coming years. But it is 100% supported by the EPA today to dispose of it, just as you would any other filter at this point. That's kind of what everyone's doing to take out of drinking water.
Okay, hopefully they'll come up with some other solution here in the next couple of years to make it even more safe.
Yeah.
Let's see. William asks, do all the filter cartridges remove PFAS and lead? Will they remove all the lead as per the April 2024 EPA recommendation of 0 parts per billion lead?
Yep. So we have one, of those 3 filters we have, the 71300C is the one that does PFAS in addition to lead. So that's an available option. The other 2 still do lead. So those are legacy filters. So we've created the new PFAS one, but we still have the lead ones available. So of those 3, one does the PFAS, which is sort of the best of the 3 in terms of water quality. In terms of the lead levels, the way that the industry basically works is we certify our filters to an NSF basically standard, or NSF ANSI standard. Today, what you have to show is that your filter gets it below 5 parts per billion lead, which is the NSF ANSI standard. When you start making specific claims about lead levels, people don't tend to do that because in any environment, in any specific application, you might see different results. And from just a liability standpoint, you don't want to kind of go about that. So what I think we'll see is if this is a demand in the market, the NSF ANSI standards will adjust, but everyone will certify to those levels because they're not making specific claims because they don't know kind of what's going to go out there. I will tell you the way NSF ANSI works is for that test, they create water that's got 150 parts per billion of lead. And that's the incoming water that they use. They don't just use random water and maybe it's lead-free water and you got lucky because you didn't take anything out. They create in a lab 150 parts per billion water, put it through a filter, and you have to show it goes below 5. Ours in that test went below 1, right? We don't say it's a 1 because out in the field you might see 2, and then you're like, well, what happened? So we have to be careful about saying we're just compliant to the standard. We know it goes lower. But we also know that 150 parts per billion of incoming water is extremely high. And even worse environments have 40, 50, and then actually the filter will perform better with lower incoming. So it's a long way of saying, I think most filters get you to that 0.1. You don't really say it, but the standard might update as the EPA requires different things to be in line with each other. But mostly you'll see standard certified versus kind of the number the filter is.
All right. Thanks for that clarification. Let's see. Another question here. We have LK bottle filters in schools. The plan is to add filters to mitigate lead levels above guideline limits. We'll test the lead levels prior to the filter addition and then post-filter addition. What parameters do you recommend or should be considered for post-testing to prove the filter's effectiveness? And they give an example, maybe water usage after the 3,000 gallons.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're specifically targeting lead, right? I think before and after the filter is installed is a good way to kind of differentiate where we were and where we are now. That 3,000 gallon filter, that 6,000 gallon filter is tested to still be effective below those levels at those capacities. And so, you can run that for 3,000 gallons and still show that that improvement versus pre-filter. And that's how kind of capacity levels are determined, as how long does that filter and how much can it take in over the course of all this. From 150 to under 5, we can put it on for 6,000 gallons. It's still going from 150 to under 5 for that whole 3,000 gallons or 6,000 gallons. So I think that's certainly a good way to look at it and see, it's still performing after these levels against what your pre-filter lead levels were.
Earlier, you made reference to the ESSER funds and noted a few situations where you could take advantage of that still before those funds disappear. A question came in on are there any grants available for your water systems? The person noted, I teach in a one-room school with a very small budget.
Yeah, there might be at different local state levels. I know we're seeing that pop up. I would say, we have a network of third-party reps in various states, so we can sort of look at this school or region specifically. From the LK side, we don't have a grant program per se, but I know at the state local levels there's different available options. And again, ESSER funds are still out there, may not apply to your situation, but I've seen different grants pop up from different government programs and federal programs that can be utilized.
Okay. I guess for that person, just be on the lookout for some other opportunities that might pop up. May have to do a little digging to find them, but hopefully you'll find something to help out. I thought this question was interesting. Can your filters be installed on other makes of fountains? Can they be installed as a whole building filter?
Yeah, so yes, they can be installed, and the way we've done that is, through these retrofit and inline solutions. And so we actually have our filters that sit next to competitors' bottle fillers that are unfiltered. So that incoming water line is hitting our filter, then going into their dispenser. That's something that is easily done with these retrofit kits. The whole building filtration, is something that we don't offer. We're really focusing on point of use. I would say, the way I talk about or think about whole building filtration is really two things. One, it's not efficient in terms of you're filtering things you don't need to. So you think about flushing toilets, washing hands, different things that's all going through, high performance filtration that gets consumed and you got to pay for and maintain. And then subsequently from the building to the point of use, it goes through a series of obviously distribution pipes and fittings. Some are more modern buildings where there's less concern, but there are historically lead pipes and fittings and solderings in distribution throughout the building. So while you might take care of the filtration at point of entry, you could get water quality issues throughout that building to the point of use. And then that's why the point of use is the most, I would say, efficient, in that you're only filtering what's being consumed. And it's the most fail-safe in that we're doing it right at the point of use versus wondering between an entry point and a use point, what else could have been introduced to water in that system. So that's why, that's kind of, I think about point of entry, but there are solutions out there. We don't make any, but there's other companies that provide that. But again, it's less efficient, and it's less knowing that what you're drinking, it's filtered a while ago versus right at the point of consumption. Right.
So Roger's curious if you have a trade-in program for your fountains. He's based in Arizona.
Yeah, there's nothing formalized in terms of that. Within Arizona, our rep is mainline sales. I would say if there's opportunities, reach out to mainline. I can obviously get you contact information. And I think we just look at things on a case-by-case basis, but there's nothing formally of here's a website with you put in your inputs and here's what spits out. But that's sort of what our reps do. is go and cover the region for opportunities. And I think we can evaluate, anything on a case-by-case basis and figure out how to work together. Because we do want people in filtered units that have easier maintenance and different things like that. So to the extent we can make something work, we can take a look at it.
All right. Looks like we've got time for one last question. I'll throw this one out, and then after that, we'll kind of wrap things up. Stephen's curious, how do I deal with PFAS 2,200 gallons on a 3,000 gallon reminder for the filter changes?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's a longer answer than probably we have in here, but I'm just into what yes, on the standard, you're picking up exactly the right stuff, right? On the standard bottle filler, that will alert after 3,000 gallons. It's a slightly lower capacity filter. One of the ways you can do it is that yellow light comes on at 80%. So that yellow light comes on at 2,400 gallons. So it's pretty close. So you can always go at the yellow light to do that. The other thing, and I won't officially say this on the record, but there's buffer in that capacity, right? It's not exactly at 2,250, just the way it gets rated. It's actually almost double that. They just say that to be conservative, that if you have a 4,500 gallon filter and you call it 2,250, hopefully by 4,500 you've changed it, but it's safe. So, we would never come out and officially say go beyond the stated capacity, but we do know there's leeway in there. We do know that yellow light's pretty close to the 2,250. So the question is whether that 750 gallon gap between the filter's life and the red light is more of a risk than taking PFAS out of the water. And so that's kind of, just as a discussion, some things I talk with customers about is, yes, it'll be green for 750 gallons longer than that filter's rated for. We know there's a little bit of leeway. We don't say that's officially the capacity, but we're also doing the PFAS, which might be worth, that going into kind of that yellow status. So again, not something I officially said, but just something to consider.
No, it makes sense. As we all know, there's always safety factors built in. And so, as you said, you can't say it officially, but we know it's there. All right. So this wraps up the session today. On behalf of ASNU, I'd like to thank Scott for sharing all his knowledge and expertise with us today and talking about the LK products, and thank the company for sponsoring today's event. So for all the listeners out there, have a great rest of the day and look for more enlightening webinars from us in the near future. Take care.
Thank you.